And then we're also asking for, this is not asking, we're just requesting that they also consider making room for short breaks, for short regular screen breaks, because you're spending an entire day, you're spending around 8 hours just looking at a screen. That, it tends to do something to you. And I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes when you're focused on one task alone, there's a way your mind feels very congested. It's like it will explode. So this is supposed to take care of that. And we've also heard that it's the experience of a lot of workers that they develop eye problems because of that uninterrupted interrupted whatever. The whatever is looking at the screen. Anyway, we are also asking that they remove penalties for extended breaks, because I think that's a bit unreasonable. Because also imposing penalties on extended breaks is a way of disincentivizing the worker from taking a break, which is it's really not fair. It really isn't fair. That's all I can say about that. And then also leave. The issue of leave is something that we are introducing. The reason is, as it stands, there's no entitlement to leave, and that it kind of makes sense, because the work engagements are short. Most of the contracts I came across, the work engagement was only for a period of 1 month. But then the practice is that, and the practice is that after that month, the contract is extended. So you end up working for longer than a month, but because your initial contract was only a month, the employer does not feel the need to grant you leave. So having done the calculation for what the statutorily mandated leave that regular employees or traditional employees are entitled to, we found that a reasonable number of leave days is 2 days. And then we also need them to recognize national public holidays, because again, this is not a practice. And in addition to this, we'll be asking that if there's any work that needs to be done, it will be done during those days. It will be done with the consent of the worker. So it should be upon the worker to decide whether or not they want to work on those days, but there will be no obligation to work on those days. The other very important thing is on the labeling of distressing content. Because I think the stories I have had is that you just come upon this content without knowing, and then again, you can't opt out of it. So we'll be asking that before the distressing content is, queued into your task, you need to be informed that what you're about to see might be distressing, so that you prepare mentally. And where you don't want to engage with that content, we are asking for the right to opt out of handling such content without any penalty accruing to you. Moving on to the second part of that clause, caters to the BPO workers, who I think most of them are on-site workers. So for this one, we are asking that they pay attention, that the companies ensure compliance with the Occupational Safety and Health Act. Yes. And the act provides for certain standards that need to be met by employers regarding the work conditions that they expose their employees to. In addition to this, we're asking for hygiene, ergonomic. I think that's how you say it. We're asking for the companies to provide ergonomic furniture and protective accessories. Again, I was told of a certain BPO company where part of the incentive for getting you to go to work early is the fact that there are some comfortable chairs and some uncomfortable chairs. And that's rather unfair because at the end of the day, there's a worker who will sit on that uncomfortable chair, and the company is not willing to cater to their health, health insurance, but will expose them to such a harsh working condition. So we'll be asking them to provide ergonomic furniture, and also the screen, what are they called? The screen protectors? The anti-glare. Yes, the anti-glare clean screen protectors. um, what we also would like them to do is to designate suitable, key emphasis on suitable rest areas. You know, it's possible for them to just give you a room, but then the furniture there at a haikaliki, you know, it can't be sat on. You know, the couch is so uncomfortable. It's not enough for the workers to fit in. You're given a small room with only 2 chairs, and there are like 50 workers. So we would want them to provide rest areas that can actually be used and that will actually aid the worker in resting. And yeah, and in addition to this, and related to this rather, an on-site creche is also, this one should be a demand. This one is actually a demand because it is the practice in traditional offices to have a designated area where lactating mothers can retreat to, you know, to cater to their children. So, and among these workers, we have workers who are lactating mothers and in that point in life. So for the creche, it needs to be suitable. It needs to meet the standards and the levels that are statutorily mandated. We also would want access to basic medical services. Yes, self-explanatory. There should be a nurse within the vicinity, first aid kit, and it's not those first aid kits that you open and you find there's only cotton, elastoplast, mojo, you know what I mean? You know, like, it needs to be a functioning office, because it is an office, and it needs to be able to take care of the people who work in that office. So, in knowing very well that not a lot, but there are incidences that occur within such environments, we will be preparing a template for the reporting of those incidents, as well as any concerns that anybody may have about the suitability of the work environment with regard to potential physical harm to their health. And then this template, the reporting will be done through an accessible and secure channel. It is important that the channel is secure so that, again, the worker does not feel like they might be targeted for raising a concern, or, you know, I think what I'm coming to understand about this field or this industry is that the one thing that is very meaningful to the workers in the industry is the feeling of safety. And by safety, I mean, I don't want to feel like whatever I say or whatever I do will result in a penalty, or, you know, I'll get punished for it, or I'll be treated in any other way. So that principle or value is something that we'd want to be underscored throughout the contract, and where the company evaluates the harm or concern that has been reported and finds it valid in the sense that they're able to confirm that it arises from the nature and design of the work, then in addition to mitigating and preventing future harm, we will be asking them to at least cover the medical expenses that arise from the treatment or the treatment that the worker will undergo to cure the harm. Or in addition to this, we are also asking for access to mental and occupational health support. Access to mental and occupational health support for at least 3 months after the harm has been reported. This is where it is found that is necessary. So moving on to mental health support, which is the next key part of the code of conduct. I mean, it's all right there. Setting realistic workload and performance expectations, because you find that the environment that has been created at the moment is a bit competitive, and so workers tend to have to push themselves to the limit because you're trying to, I mean, it's only if you, the threshold for earning money is directly dependent on the effort that you put, and this comes as a result of the competition that has been created by the system that they have created. So we want them to at least take responsibility for that and make sure that the workload that is imposed is more realistic. It is what would be given to, your regular employee, because at the end of the day, these are people doing the work. So there are people doing the work. You can't pretend that there won't be any consequences to putting undue pressure on the workers. So we have rest, we have mental health and psychosocial support during, now this one is important, we're asking for the support during the period of engagement and until and at least 3 months after the termination of the agreement. I think we had here from Kauna, she mentioned that sometimes the impact of what you've experienced is a lot greater when you leave than even while you were working there. And so that's why I feel that aftercare is necessary for that part of, to at least ease into your transition out of the job. In addition to that, and what I think will need to be, actually, matter of fact, it's the next point, for the mental health support that should be given should not just be haphazard. Like, just because you have a counselor, you find that you've been given a counselor who specializes in like children problems or something like that, it needs to be someone who's trained well enough for their job. They need to be able to respond properly to your concerns. And then also we need mental health training for workers and supervisors, so that, because the last point is peer support, creating peer support networks. So we need to make sure that even the workers themselves, where they are unable, the workers themselves are equipped to help each other out, because I think we mentioned how important community is when you're working in such a setup. So we need the companies to be able to ensure and foster and facilitate that, the creation of peer support networks that actually are impactful and helpful. And even for supervisors, you need supervisors to be trained on these things so that they're able to be responsive to the needs of, the people they're supervising, and to respond in empathetic, in the relevant, in the proper ways. The next and most important clause, which I notice misses from a lot of the contracts that are signed, is one on freedom of association. Now, I think in another forum, it was shared how a lot of the workers who decided to come together and sue Meta, they were blacklisted. And even before they were blacklisted, there was effort that was put into watering down the claims. Like, the company, if I'm not mistaken, they tried to sow seeds of dissent, tried to sow seeds of division, and they made sure everyone wouldn't agree. And now the first attempt at suing, or at least asking for change, was not successful. So now here we need the companies to be able to first acknowledge that the workers have a constitutionally protected right to organize, to associate, to come together. Secondly, they also need to promise is a very cute word, but they also need to guarantee the workers that they will not interfere with the exercise of this right. Because, as I said, it is a constitutionally, the right is constitutionally provided for. It is your right by virtue of being a citizen, not even an employee. By virtue of being a citizen of Kenya, you are entitled to it. And there's no reason why companies operating locally or hiring locally should not be compliant with that. So the next clause is on communication and support, and basically here we're just asking for proper channels of communication, like proper points of contact that will allow workers to be able to raise questions, seek clarification, ask for feedback, and without, again, fear of retaliation, and also at least to allow some growth and to allow some personal development among the workers.